Hi, hello, welcome back to the Horror Shelf. My name is Donata and today I'll be showing you all the books that I've read in May, which is this whole pile. And there's one book that I've read on e-reader, so you will see it when I get to it. These are all the books that I've read in May, and let's get into it. So there are a few books in here that I have already mentioned in previous videos, so I'll just give those a really short rundown. But I'll start with the books that I haven't talked about yet. I read 1984 by George Orwell, and this is gonna be controversial, but I did like this book and I also hated it at the same time. So 1984 is this literature book and it's very famous, it's like required reading in middle school. And essentially it's this dystopian story about a world where individualism is banned and the government rules all. The government always watches you, Big Brother is watching, that's from this book. So you completely can't think for yourself anymore. Like, the government is literally ruling everything, and you get these slogans that the government in the book is spreading, like, war is peace, freedom is slavery, Big Brother is watching. It's all about the destruction of truth, and the destruction of freedom, and individuality, and there's a lot of censorship and brainwashing, and all in all, I think the whole message behind the book, what George Orwell is trying to convey, is really important, and it's such a great warning about what humanity is capable of doing. This book is so timeless because of the warning and because of the message behind it. It's such an important book, and I completely agree with that, and that's why I did like this book, and also because I just like dystopian stories. I like these concepts of what humanity could be. If things went wrong in some type of way, what would the world look like? I really like those stories and I like thinking about that, and I think 1984 is just a perfect example of a book like that. I think Brave New World is also a great example of that, and Tender is the Flesh is also a really good book about a dystopian world that is completely horror, actually. 1984, the message behind the book I agree with, how can I not? I think it's such an important book. However, if I had to review this book without looking at the message that it's conveying and just look at only the style of writing, I hate it. I hate it so much. I think it's an absolute slag of a book. It was almost like a pain in the ass to finish this book because of George Orwell's writing style, right? So this has nothing to do with the message. It's just pure, his writing style was so incredibly annoying to me. It's almost like he had all these political ideologies, right? Which I agree with, but he's just spoon-feeding them to you. You don't have to think about anything. It's just, you don't have to do any digging in this book, you know what I mean? I like when I have to do a little bit of digging of what is the author meaning when he's saying this. In this book you don't get that at all, which is also probably kind of the point. It's just personally for me, I don't like that. I think it's annoying. And then also, because this book is also about brainwashing, right? So there's a lot of repetition in this book. Things that are happening, these things that they are saying to each other, the activities that they're doing, it's so much repetition, and I get it. It's because the book is also about brainwashing, right? So you're kind of start feeling brainwashed as well. So that's great. It's just not for me. This book could have been shortened in half if you took out all the repeating scenes that have been repeated for like 10 times, Just repeat it twice or maybe 3 times, and then I get it. You don't need to repeat it 10 times to me, you know what I mean? So I think this book could have been like half this size. There was something in the writing style that I also didn't like, but he starts listing something. So it's, and this thing, 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 and this thing. And then a few pages later, he's again listing something. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And then a few pages later, he's listing something again. And this, and this, and this, and this. It's like, why are you listing everything? Why? This book could have been so much shorter if it just was edited a little bit. And don't get me started on the part where Winston, is his name Winston? Yeah, where Winston, the main character, he's reading this book about the political opposition, right? And there is all this explanation about the politics in this world and how it all works and why everything is the way it is, right? Which is really interesting. It's just, why was it 40 pages long? Why? It was such a drag. I think I skipped a few parts of that because I couldn't be bothered. I was already started to get so annoyed with the writing style of George Orwell, and then the 40 pages of explanation why this world is the way it is, that you also just figure out while you're reading the book. You figure out how this world works and why it works the way that it works, you know? There didn't need to be a 40-page long explanation of it in this book. If it needed to be in there, it could have been 10 pages, you know what I mean? It's just, this book is so important in terms of the message, and it's timeless, and the whole ideas behind it are incredible for the time that this was written in, but it's just the writing style itself is not for me, and it was so annoying for me to read. So yeah, 1984, I'm sorry if I offended anyone, I probably have, but I just did not like this book. For example, Brave New World, love that one. Fahrenheit, love that one. Tender is a Flash even, love that one. This, I couldn't, but I did finish it. Even though I was annoyed for like half of the book. So yeah, that's that. I'm sorry if I offended you. I'm sorry. But oh well, this is the Books of Blood short story collection by Clive Barker. This is a big book. I think I could kill a man with this book. If someone would break into my house, I would use this book as a weapon. This is gigantic. And this took me a whole 8 months to read. I started this in September and I finished it this month in May. It's 8 months. It's almost a full pregnancy. That's how it felt. I'm just kidding, but it did take me that long to read this, and that's because it's a short story collection. And it's about 30 stories, I guess, and I think, so if I would visualize it, yeah. This whole first part I really liked. I enjoyed it and I read it quite fast. Then I got to the middle part, this. Did not like. There were a few stories in here that were just a bit boring to me. And then I got to the last part and I really loved those stories again. So I read those pretty quickly. And that was why it took me so long. Because of the middle part. I mean, the stories are still very, very nice, but just some of the subjects didn't really interest me. And there's 2 stories in here actually that I skipped completely, or DNF'd, I guess. And that's a story about a gorilla, because I don't like apes. And I don't want to read a whole story about a murdering ape. No. So I skipped that one. And there was also one that felt more political history-ish. And I also couldn't get into that one. So I skipped those 2. But other than that, I read all the stories in this book. And honestly, even though there were a few that I did not like personally, this was still a 5-star read for me, because Clive Barker is just such an amazing writer. And I think this short story collection is really a reflection of how good he writes, you know. And the Books of Blood is quite literally a benchmark book for if you like horror. If you like horror, or if you are getting into reading horror and you don't know where to start, the Books of Blood is a great place to begin, you know. Because you get so much variety. It's 30 short stories and they're all different kinds of horror. You get psychological horror, you get body horror, you get more fantasy type-ish horror, there's splatterpunk in here, there's some comedy in here as well, like dark comedy. It's great, you get everything. And what I also really like about Clive Barker is that the characters he writes are also completely different. All different kinds of races, genders that don't exist, types of people that exist, that don't exist, bad guys, annoying guys, good guys. Everything. Like that he doesn't limit himself to a few types of characters, you know? What's really typical for Clive Barker is that sometimes scenes are over the top, you know? You get really weird doing the nasty type of scenes, if you know what I mean. There's really weird types of violence in here. The body horror is also crazy. There's people melting into each other and it's great. He's one of my favorite authors. I don't know what else to say. I'll just tell you about my favorite stories that are in this book, and I'll just give you a really quick summary of what those stories are about, as quick as I can, because otherwise this video is going to take ages. But yeah, so I liked the beginning and the end part of the book, where he talks about the streets of the dead. So it's this idea that if you die, you go to the second world, and there are all these dead people wandering around on the streets, and they're all going somewhere, and they carry all these stories with them. I really liked that idea, that concept that he talked about. The first story that really sucked me into this book was The Midnight Meat Train, which is also made into a movie, actually. And I think it's the most popular story out of these all. If I read reviews, they're all talking about The Midnight Meat Train. And that's for good reason, because it's amazing and it's so terrifying and disgusting. It's essentially a story about a metro in New York City where some bloody, murderous things happen. The fun part is that New York City is also a character in the story. That was what I was talking about, like everything is a character in his stories, even non-human things. So in this case, New York City is a character, which is very interesting. So I loved Midnight Meat Train. I loved the Yattering and Jack, which is which is a story about a demon that's hunting this man's house, and then at one part in the story he starts hunting the Christmas turkey and the Christmas tree. It's crazy. It's so much fun. I liked the Madonna as well. I have no clue how I would summarize that one. So just I read the Madonna and I liked the Madonna. And then I liked The Forbidden as well, which is actually the story for Candyman, the movie. And I read In the Hills, the City. This is also one of my favorites, which is about this gay couple that are going on a little road trip. And then they run into something in the woods and everything goes wrong. But that sounds basic the way I describe it, but it's not basic. It's really surrealistic and shit goes down. And I literally don't know how to describe this story as well, because it's so incredibly strange. You have to read that one for yourself, because that one is wild. I think that's also one of the most popular stories in this book as well. That's all I have to say about Books of Blood by Clive Barker. This was a 5-star read for me, and I think every fan of horror, every horror reader should read this, because this is a masterpiece. You know what I mean? And the nice thing is, because it's all short stories, right? So let's say you put this on your coffee table, because it also looks cool, you know, this is a cool looking book. You put this on your coffee table, and if you are in the mood to read something, but you don't want to pick up a whole book, you just want to read something fast, and you want to know that it's amazing, you can pick something out of this, and it will always be nice, except for the story about the ape. But that's just me. I have something against apes. Yeah, that's Books of Blood. And then I read Chuck Palahniuk's Invisible Monsters, which I showed you in my book haul video. This was also a 5-star read for me. This book is so insane. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'll just give you a quick rundown what it's about. So in this book you follow a model and her jaw gets blown off by a gun in an accident. And she meets Brandy Alexander. And this is a woman that is one operation away from being a real woman. That's what it says on the back. And they meet each other and they will go on this adventure together. And it's insane. It's like almost every page that you read is like, what am I reading? It's also non-linear. You just get thrown around in the story. It's not linear. I thought that was gonna be confusing, but it's not that confusing actually, because you can still follow the story really well. It just makes it a lot weirder. I like that. This is such a strange story, but there was a message behind this, and it was a lot about beauty. So what is the meaning of beauty? Why is it important or why is it not important? What good things can beauty bring, but also what horrors can beauty bring, and what does it mean for these characters and how do they navigate this? And it's kind of a commentary on society. But this is so sprinkled throughout the book, right? But the story itself is actually insane. You keep getting thrown around in the storyline. And the way he writes is so interesting, because all these characters, on one page you really like them, and then the next page you're like, oh, I actually don't like this person. And then something happens and you start liking them again. And then something else happens and you hate them again. And then one time you agree with what they're saying, and then the next time you disagree with what they're saying. You kind of get like whiplash, you know? You don't know what's happening. You don't know who the good guy is. You don't know who the bad guy is. There's a lot of plot twists in this book as well. It made me sit and be like, what is happening? You know? I actually love this. You do need a kind of a dark sense of humor for this book, because there are some dark jokes in here. And you also need an open mind, just because of how strange this story is. Just even the cast of characters is just a crazy combination. Like, you have this model without a jaw, she can't talk, and she almost can't eat. Like, she's literally, this part of her face is missing, right? And she's wearing these veils to cover up her face. And then there's Brandy Alexander, who is a transgender woman, dressing like really fabulous, these really extravagant dresses and clothes and big hair, big shoes, and she's really tall, and she's really like a real flamboyant diva. I don't know how else to describe it. That's Brandy Alexander. And then there's this guy that they are feeding female hormones to see what's gonna happen to him. And he has a crazy backstory, but I can't tell you that because then I would spoil the book. But yeah, just the lineup of characters, and you also meet these side characters that are also crazy. I really, really love this book. I gave this 5 stars. I do recommend this, but I do also think at the same time that this is really love it or hate it type of book, you know. I like it, but I like weird fiction in general, so... But all in all, I do recommend this one. I had a really good time reading this. And then there are a few books that I have already talked about, so I'll just keep this short. So first of all, I have The Omen by David Seltzer, which is this classic horror book. It's kind of like The Exorcist. There's this kid that comes from a rich family and he's kind of the Antichrist. And this book was made into a movie, but I talked about this in this video. So if you want to know more about Omen and what I thought about it, you can click that one. And then I have read Along the River of Flesh by Christopher Triana, which is an extreme horror book. So I love this one, but I'm also a big fan of Gone to See the Riverman, which is part 1 to this book. So I'm not surprised that I loved this one as well. But I did a full review of this book with spoilers that you can find here. It's about the serial killer from Gone to See the Riverman. He gets out and there's a few people following him for various reasons. That's what this book is about. And it's really nasty and disturbing and horrifying. Just how I like it. And then I read I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I also already gave my full opinion about this book in this video. Because I had some mixed feelings about this. I really, really liked this book. I just did not like the ending. If I had to summarize it really short, this book is about a group of women that are locked in a bunker. They don't know why. They don't know what happened. They don't know why they're in there. They don't know what the point is that they're in there, you know. And then suddenly something happens and they get out. And you follow this main character and her experience throughout this all. And it's such an interesting concept. It's also kind of dystopian, I guess. We have a pattern here with dystopian books. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I do recommend this one. However, yeah, if you want to know what I thought of the ending, why I did not like it, click this video. I know that's probably so annoying, but also what you can do about it. And then finally I read A House of Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, which was a 5-star read, but I like all the books by T. Kingfisher. I think she's such an amazing writer as well. It's more fantasy-ish than horror. It's like a haunted house story, but not really. There's a lot of flowers. It is creepy, but it's fun creepy, you know? It's good times. You're not completely disgusted when you're reading this. You're just like, oh, what's happening? Oh, that's creepy. Oh, ooh. One thing though, if you don't like insects, maybe don't read this one, because there's a lot of insects in this. Because the main character, she's a, what's it called again? Archaeoentomologist. Anyway, she studies insects in archaeological remains, right? So, which is really interesting. But anyway, there's a lot of insects in this book. But it's so much fun. It's just a light, creepy read, you know? It's fast, there's humor in it, it's witty, it's original. What else can I say? I love T. Kingfisher. I love her. That was an interesting wrap-up, I would say. Maybe some controversial points made. Sorry for that. But this is my channel, I can say what I want to. That's all the books I've read. Quite a lot of variety, once again. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Have you read any? Do you agree with me on the writing style of 1984? Because I need people to agree with me. I can hardly find any bad reviews about this book, which made me think like, maybe I'm dumb. But at the same time, all the reviews are about the message in the book. And I agree that the message in this book and the ideology is amazing and it's ahead of its time and it's timeless at the same time. But it's just the writing style, it just annoys me so much and almost nobody is talking about it. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're not mad at me for my opinion about 1984. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.